at Canterbury Christ Church University to talk about their education and teacher training routes. I'm Ashley and this is Jess, and we're from Kent Teach, and I'm going to let these lovely ladies introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Claire March. I am the course director for the school-based routes into teaching and also the postgraduate teacher apprenticeship route into teaching.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for having us today, first and foremost. So we're going to start with Cissie, and we're going to talk a bit about the childhood studies course that you guys offer. So can you tell me a little bit about the childhood studies course?
Yeah, absolutely. So the course is childhood and youth. However, we have two separate pathways, one being childhood, youth and communities, and childhood, youth and SEN. The course offers a diverse opportunity for students to triangulate their practice with theoretical positions, contemporary issues that surround children and young people. It's an interdisciplinary course where we include psychology, sociology, elements of geography, current issues that affect children and young people, and also with a heavy focus on the BA especially on professional identity and developing the role and skills needed in the workplace on entry to maintain a professional career and to be able to collaborate with others.
So how does that kind of link into the teaching side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So a typical week for our students would be that students are in setting. So it's a professional learning course where students are in a placement, either paid or voluntary, and they come to us between 5 and 8 once a week. And the course itself, as said, is underpinned by interdisciplinary approaches to development, child development and elements of education, as well as sociology and psychology. After the course, so the foundation degree of level 4 and level 5, and then the BA top-up gives the students a full honours degree, and then they can go into the teacher training routes after. However, where students are in setting, it's an opportunity for them to triangulate what they're learning in practice, what they're learning in setting, as a transaction between the two.
So what sort of qualifications do you need to join the course?
A student would need a level 4 or C GCSE in English and a level 3 in a relevant qualification, including teaching assistant, childcare, that kind of avenue.
It seems really accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beauty of the course, is that students can remain 5 days a week in setting. So the entry requirements are 15 hours as a minimum of paid work or employment, of working with children, young people and or communities. But it offers that flexibility and more of a bespoke course around, people being able to earn money but coming to university between 5 and 8 in the evening once a week.
Just out of interest, who do you find kind of takes up this course? Like what sort of roles do they tend to have in school?
It's really varied. I mean, for example, some of our exit students at level 6 this year, we've had somebody that arranges and works with families and organises the EHCP process. We've had people that work in like local communities, social work support, pastoral support, behaviour managers, behaviour mentors, teaching assistants. So it really is diverse. And because the sessions are seminars, not lectures, it's very involved, and it's involved in students reflecting on their practice and disseminating differences across the practices to then go on and inform their practice, but also their academic writing, and also it will be for their professional skills moving forward into childhood, youth and communities, and childhood, youth and SEN pathways.
Oh, that sounds amazing. How is this foundation degree different from an undergraduate degree?
So it's really important to recognise that both pathways, whichever pathway that you apply for, the courses are separate. So we have the foundation degree, which is level 4 and level 5, and then we have the separate course of the BA to top up that foundation degree to a whole BA honours at level 6. It gives you the whole 240 credits, I believe, for a whole honours degree. Is that right, Claire? Is it 240 or 360? Yeah, it gives you the whole degree. Yeah. What's needed for an honours? Yeah, 360.
Yes, there we go.
Yes. So the total. So it's very important to recognise that it's two separate courses, whichever pathway that you choose to go, be it the communities pathway or the SEN pathway. So the foundation degree is 2 years, which is level 4, and level 5, which is 240 credits, and the BA as a separate course is 120 credits. And the beauty of that is, again, going back to this bespoke, tailored approach to our course, where if you decided with the foundation degree that you would like to exit with your 240 credits to go and pursue avenues of employment or further training on a different BA pathway or a career that just stops at that level 5, and then you've got the flexibility to come back to the BA for that 1 year to top up to the full degree within the 5-year period.
Brilliant.
So you mentioned about the special educational needs course there. So
Yes.
how is that slightly different from the regular?
So students don't necessarily have to be in a SEN setting or work with children with SEN. If you think of the way that the education sector is going especially, there is a wide spectrum of SEN needs that are tailored for and catered for within mainstream as well as specialist setting. And the SEN pathway offers more of a focus to the modules and the content and the sort of pathway outcomes after the course has been completed are very SEN focused. So for example, looking at children with SEN, special educational needs, and the way that that intersects with family and familial support might be on the SEN pathway, but the communities pathway might be about looking at a contemporary childhood issue that centres around children and young people in general, but not necessarily with the SEN focus. Also, the career outcomes could be slightly different if you took the SEN pathway. So, for example, as well as teacher training, students could go and do the SENCO award. Students might be able to do the speech and language therapy course if they take the SEN pathway. That doesn't limit students that take the SEN pathway to go into careers such as community support officer, family liaison officer. So they can interchange, but the focus on the SEN pathway is more towards those who are, passionate about working in settings with children with SEN and want that to be more of a specialism in comparison to the communities pathway.
Brilliant. Gosh, it sounds like so many options available depending on what people are interested in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is the cost of this training, and is there any funding available for people?
So the course itself is £9,530 per annum. It's considered a full-time course because of the way of the expectations and what's written into the course are required of students. So we have 3 hours of teaching per week between 5 and 8 across Canterbury, Medway, Maidstone and Kingston campuses. Students also engage in work-based tasks which enable them to take something from the session and put that into place in the workplace and then feed back the following week with their peers in their group. There's also academic direction, like independent reading, as well as being in placement for 15 hours a week. So it's not just the 3 hours. So that's why it reflects the cost for it being a full-time course. Funding would be available through contacting our bursaries and scholarships department if there is availability, which is often quite competitive. However, the student finance option is available for both the foundation degree and the BA top-up.
Brilliant. I know we spoke about kind of the roles and kind of the career opportunities that present itself through this course, but are there any further education opportunities relevant after the completion of this course?
Yeah, so as said, for the communities and SEN pathways, although the SEN pathway gives that more of a specialism towards unpacking issues that surround SEN in settings and in policy as well as in theory, the career paths that one can go on to after do include teacher training, but also, as said, the SENCO award, speech and language therapist, behaviour and inclusion officer, and the ones in the communities pathway are more geared towards community liaison, community support, social care, so it's a lot more generalised. However, if you take the SEN pathway, you can still go for the jobs in the communities pathway, further careers, and the communities can also go for the SEN. However, having the SEN specialism, I suppose, would make you or may make you more attractive to go into careers that are geared around the further career pathways that I've just mentioned.
Of course. So if an individual was interested in the childhood studies course but they did not have employment, what would you suggest?
Absolutely. So we would suggest to students to go into settings on a voluntary basis. So the setting requirements are 15 hours a week minimum, and volunteering, that's sort of 3 days a week across 5 hours per day. We don't source the settings for students, but we would definitely be able to give students support when, constructing a letter to write to a setting to ask for volunteer position. Students do need to have placement well in advance to starting the course around the third week of September, second week of September. So they would need to, have that setting in place, whether it's paid employment or it's voluntary.
And with that, if someone was in a voluntary position and midway through the course a paid position came up, could they switch placements?
Oh, absolutely. So regardless, students can change setting or change role throughout the course, because it's be unrealistic for students to not do that and follow their career dreams. So yeah, that would be absolutely fine. So a new stakeholder agreement would need to be put in place by the student. They'd go to the stakeholder, line manager, head of the school, director, and they'd ask them to sign and agree to the stakeholder agreement, which basically says that the setting give permission for the student to be in the course, and they will support them with what is needed from the typical week that I've described. So yeah, absolutely, students can actively seek work. If students have to come away for a period of time for whatever reasons, medical reason, having a baby and having time away, because the course is heavily centred around workplace practice, then we offer the opportunity for students to come away from the course for a certain period of time and then rejoin at a later date, so to not be disadvantaged with that course. But there's terms and conditions and stipulations that centre around that, which I won't come to now.
Brilliant, thank you.
It's nice that it's so inclusive and so easy and flexible to follow people with where they go, what they do with their life and with their career. It's quite nice to see that it's not such a rigid.
Yeah, absolutely. And the content's really good in respect of looking at contemporary issues, ones that students can connect with from what they've seen. We're working in children and young people, looking at what's going on and being effective in communities. And we've got a lot of ways that we translate that. We've got a lot of sort of recordings and webinars. I recently spoke to someone who's called Squilla Sanchez, and they work in their community supporting the elderly, such as taking elderly people out clubbing, for example, which was quite interesting. But that connection with the community and having these kind of resources can then facilitate conversations and for students to make links between the similarities and differences of what's happening to inform their practice as well. Yeah, it's an exciting course, and it is, as I said, diverse, inclusive, flexible and interdisciplinary.
Brilliant. One last thing from me. We do get a lot of overseas candidates coming through our site and asking for advice and guidance and kind of opportunities. What advice would you give them if they need to join the course, or what would they need to have to access?
Yeah, absolutely. So it would be our administrations department, who is currently the administrations department, that they would contact. So we would look at what that student has, whether they join us at level 4, level 5 or level 6. Look at what they've already acquired prior to level 4, prior to level 5 or prior to level 6. Look at transcripts, see if they can translate and come over to the course. So it would be on the basis that the student has engaged with similar content that marries up to the childhood studies course. But overseas students obviously are more than welcome to join the course, as much as our residents in the UK.
It's been so interesting learning about this.
Yeah, amazing.
Fun fact, I did the course.
Really?
Yeah, so I was a single parent and I'd moved to Thanet in 2015 from South London, and I was on a really low paid job and I wanted to progress on, not only financially but for my own career and professional development. and also to sort of show my daughter that you can have it all. You can, you can study, work, have a life, etc. So I did Monday twilights, between 5 and 8, and then while I was here, I realised how much, like you said earlier, I enjoyed writing and I enjoyed, unpacking these issues that surround young people. And I graduated with a first with my BA, and then I went on to do my masters, which was also part-time, so I could carry on working. And I'm now 1 year away from my PhD. So coming from a marginalised community, the course as it stands at the moment is, has a very special place in my heart, because without it, I wouldn't have gone and developed professionally, academically, socially in some ways. So, I'm very blessed to be in the position that I am now, and it's due to the course.
Wow, amazing. That's so lovely to hear, that personal experience that you've had. And, when you speak about this course, you come across so passionate, but it's nice to have that insight now as to why. And, congratulations, being so close to your PhD, amazing.
And another fun fact before I wrap up and hand over to Claire, my daughter is coming back to the course in January.
Oh, that's
amazing.
And I will not be teaching her. We put that one in quite quick.
Oh, that's fantastic.
No, incredible. Thank you for sharing
so
that.
much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So we're now going to hand over to Claire, who's going to tell us a little bit about the primary routes. So, can you tell me about what teacher training routes you offer here at Canterbury Christ Church?
Yes, more than happy to. We have a raft of different teacher training routes here at the university. So really, it's about picking the right route for you, and we will definitely be able to support you in finding that right route. So one of the things I would always encourage you to do is come to one of our open days, meet our teams, or explore the website and look at the materials that we also have there. But I just want to run down a little bit about what we do offer and the types of courses we offer. So we offer postgraduate teacher training routes. All of them will give you QTS. And we also offer undergraduate routes. So I'm going to talk undergraduate first, and then we'll talk postgraduate, because I think it's kind of easier to understand as two distinct categories. So our undergraduate routes, we offer a BA Primary Education with QTS, which is a 3-year degree, full-time, at Canterbury, studying 6 modules every year, from modules around learning about the broad and balanced curriculum, to learning about how to teach maths and science, English really effectively, to learning about how we develop as learners and child development. All of that is part of the 3-year BA full-time. You can access funding from student finance to engage in that, and we currently are looking at around 112 UCAS points, but we are always open to conversations around what experience do you have, what qualifications do you have, and how do you suit the course. So we would look at that. Our sort of demographic, who comes on that BA course, traditionally we have quite a number of school leavers, so 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are just moving out of A-level, coming into looking at that degree, but equally so we have some mature students on that course as well, and that course would be welcome to anyone. Our other offer in the undergraduate is a new offer which we're going to start offering in September 2026. So we're going to offer a new course in September 2026, which will be our Teacher Degree Apprenticeship route. This is a new route for teaching across the country, and this will enable somebody without a degree to study for their degree whilst in paid employment. Ideally, it's somebody who's got some experience in school, and that may be a very limited short period of time. It might be 6 months experience. It just depends on where you're working and where you are in your career today. We've got a Teacher Degree Apprenticeship route coming on board for September 2026, which will be a new route. It's incredibly exciting because for the first time we're actually able to offer an undergraduate apprenticeship route. So you will be with us for 45 months, which is approximately 4 years. You will study similar sorts of modules that you would be looking at if you were doing the BA full-time route, but you will be in paid employment in a school. To access this course, you really need to be in a school, and a school will be prepared to put you through that apprenticeship route. You will do your placements in school, you will need to do a second placement in a different school, so we will want you to be doing a contrasting placement, but throughout the whole of the 4 years you will be in your setting, and it's a 60-40 split is the way in which we look at it. So 60% on the job training, 40% off the job training. And that off the job training will consist of a day a week at least at university, coming and doing the modules, developing your knowledge and understanding about the pedagogy of teaching and learning, developing your subject knowledge to be able to teach all of those subjects within the primary curriculum, really thinking about how we adapt learning, how we adapt teaching for all individuals. Then there will be an element of analysis, discussion and understanding of what you're seeing in practice and how your practice is developing, and that will be undertaken in the setting. So it will be 3 days a week where you will be working. That might be that you're taking a TA role, it might be if you've got lots of experience, you're even taking a class teacher role. It depends where you are in your career. But you know, we would be more than happy to talk to your employer if you're already employed somewhere about how that could actually work and whether it's suitable for your employer. So that's our undergraduate offer, but we also offer postgraduate primary education, getting into teaching, and we offer, again, a range of different routes. So we also offer a PGCE full-time course here, which is a 1-year route starting early September, finishing July, and that course has 4 modules attached to it, where you're thinking and learning about the range of different subjects within the curriculum, you're learning about pedagogy and practice. You start with us and you have 2 different placement settings over the year that you're with us. We find those placement settings for you, depending on where you're based in Kent. And the fee for that course is £9,335. That will give you your PGCE and your QTS, and also master's credits. So what you can do is then move those master's credits into a master's with us. Remember, if you're also looking at PGCE, we currently are offering a 20% discount to an alumni student. So if you've already studied with us, perhaps potentially on one of our other courses, then you could be looking at a discount. Or if you study with us and do your PGCE, you could be looking at a discount for your masters. So it's worth considering that. So that's our full-time PGCE. We are looking for a 2-2 in a subject that is relevant to primary education. Don't let that put you off in any shape or form. Come and talk to us about what your degree is, because you know most degrees are relevant in some shape or form to primary education because it's such a broad curriculum. Okay, so we also offer a school-based route, and we offer that as a salaried route in partnership with our schools, or a fee-funded route where you're taking finance from Student England to actually pay the fees for that route. That route is advertised by our lead schools, and you will apply to the lead school, and if you are successful, then you will come on that course. That course is a year-long course again. The subject content of that course is very similar to our PGCE course. You're learning about the subjects and the curriculums. You are learning about pedagogies into teaching, so the same thing, but you are based in the employing school, okay? And it is that school who will be training you as you go through the year. You will still be required to have a second school placement within that year. That course, we often find our schools offer those for members of staff that they have got within their team, or sometimes just offer a fee-funded route for to see who they can attract in and to train teachers to work within the profession. So that's, if you're somebody who is already in a school, you might consider that route, but it doesn't have to be that you're in a school. You could look at that route. They're all on the apply service for getting into teaching. So you could think, actually, I'm going to look at school-based, I'm going to look at PGCE, and I'm going to look at PGTA, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, which is the apprenticeship postgraduate route. So you really have to think about what route suits you and how does it work. The school-based route, it's really important to understand you can take just as QTS only, or you can top it up with the PGCE. And you don't actually have to opt to say, I want to do the PGCE till you get to us. So in September, when you start the course, we will say, would you like to do it with the PGCE? And then you have to submit assignments to be able to get the PGCE element. So for school-based, you can get the PGCE element, and for the PGCE full-time, you can also get the PGCE element. The reason that the PGCE is quite important for some people is that QTS only isn't recognised outside of England very easily. So if you suddenly thought, actually, you know what, I'd really like to go and work in Australia, I'd really like to go and work in New Zealand. If you've only got the QTS, it is more challenging to work in those sorts of places. So if you're somebody who thinks, yeah, I'm going to work, I might travel around the world and I'll teach wherever I like, because that's one of the brilliant things about teaching is you can teach anywhere in the world, then it's really useful to think about doing that PGCE if you're opting for the school-based route. Then our other route is our postgraduate teacher apprenticeship route. This is a new route this September we're launching. And this route enables you to be paid, and your employer, so you're employed by a school, your employer is paying the fee for the course. So the £9,000 fee for the course is being pulled down from the school's apprenticeship levy, and that's actually paying for the fee for the course. So for that course, you have to be employed by the school. The school will recruit. They will advertise that place. They'll also advertise that place on the Apply portal for getting into teaching. That course requires you to be doing 40% on-the-job training and 20% off-the-job training. So that 40% on-the-job training, you might be working as a qualified teacher with a class, or you might be working as a TA, and as you go through the year, that will change to teaching more and more. It really depends on what your previous experience is, how long you've worked in that school, what your role has been in that school previously. But the school is the employer. The 20% off the job training will be the time that you spend at university. So we have 13 days at university where we will look at subject knowledge, we will look at pedagogy and practice. Then there will be days that you have in school where you will be tasked with going and observing certain elements of practice, certain elements of particular types of pedagogy, such as you might go and look at how people manage behaviour, or how somebody might be adapting their teaching and learning, or how people are doing in-the-moment assessment. All of those things will be considered and developed. That's the postgraduate teacher apprenticeship. I can't put the word degree in there. That's the postgraduate teacher apprenticeship. Again, that route you can take with the PGCE option or just as the QTS. And again, that is entirely up to you. But the PGCE element of it, you will get offered as you start with us, and you will be responsible for paying the top-up fee for the PGCE element. The top-up fee for the PGCE element on the Teacher Degree Apprenticeship is just £535. So in some ways that's quite a cost-effective way into teaching with the PGCE element of it. And that's what you might want to think. On all of our routes, whether it's a postgraduate or an undergraduate route, we obviously have these weeks of intensive training practice, these ITAP weeks, where we're looking at a particular focus and we're thinking about pedagogical practice, the research in that particular area, so it might be something like English as an additional language, and we're really thinking really closely about that. We're looking at it in practice, we're analysing it, we're reading about it, we're thinking about what's best practice, and then we're enacting it and we're developing our own skills. And on a postgraduate route, there are 4 of those weeks throughout the course, and on an undergraduate route, there are 6 over the life of the undergraduate route. So the only other option we also have is an assessment-only route, which is really designed for somebody who's been working in school as an unqualified teacher already. And really, I would suggest if you know that you've been teaching in a school for over 2 years, you've been you've had conversations about the quality of your teaching and learning over that time. So there's been people observing in your practice. Then you may consider looking at that route, and you can find more information about that route on our website. The other thing to consider is that all our routes into teaching, whether it be an undergraduate or postgraduate, require you to have English, Maths and Science at C or above, or level 4 or above. If for some reason you don't have that, that doesn't stop you from coming onto a teaching course. What we ask you to do is to do an equivalency test prior to starting the course. You do have to have those qualifications prior to starting the course, so you wouldn't be allowed to start unless you've got your English, Maths and Science. And the other requirement is that you obviously have your OC Health, and you obviously have gone through a DBS process for teaching.
Wow, we didn't realise how many different routes were available, and how many different ways you can obtain QTS, adding on your PGCE. There's just so many ways in. It can be so bespoke depending on what people have and what they need, and it's great to hear that you'll consider other degrees and other qualifications.
Yeah.
It seems like there's ways to make it work for everyone who wants to get into teaching. So.
We would definitely say come and talk to us, because sometimes actually talking to us will help you to understand which route's best for you. Because you can really think about, well, actually currently I'm in a school, but actually I really want to do the PGCE full-time route because I want to explore different schools. We have a number of students that are starting with us on the PGTA, so the apprenticeship postgraduate route this September, who are coming from specialist provision and working in our special schools. So we've got really niche areas for development, and we can then really tailor their route to make sure that they get what they need to be able to be a really effective teacher in the specialist setting, but also we are training somebody to be a teacher in any setting. So it's really important that they also experience mainstream settings, and we think about what skills they need to develop to be a really effective teacher in that setting as well. And so we will really look at the individual and talk to them about what's the best route for them, and even once they're on that route, what's the best journey on that route. And I would really say to all of our postgraduate or undergraduate students, your journey is your journey, and it looks really different from another student. And one of the things that we pride ourselves here on at Canterbury Christ Church University is our ability to support you as an individual student. That's something that we're really strong and passionate about, is making sure that whoever you are as a student, we are working with you to get the best possible outcomes for you. And that's, we want the best possible teachers teaching our children in Kent, because that's incredibly important. And so that's what we aim to achieve.
Fantastic. Well, it's lovely to hear. So we've spoken a lot about how to get into these courses, kind of what to expect when you're on the course. What happens after the training?
So most of our students that come into us, whether they're on a postgraduate or an undergraduate, are starting thinking that they're going into teaching. And a large percentage of our students will go into teaching in a classroom. That may not be a straightforward mainstream classroom. It might be a classroom that's in a special provision, or it might be a classroom that is in a hospital, or it might be community classrooms. So teaching doesn't have to just exist in what we think of as a primary school. Teaching can occur in a variety of different settings, and I always remind students about that actually. Although you may be a qualified teacher, you may be a qualified teacher and teaching children that are not in education, not able to access a mainstream classroom. Or you might be taking your teaching degree and thinking, actually I'm going to travel around the world and I'm going to use my teaching degree in a variety of different countries. A teaching degree is a really great basis for developing a career. So obviously I started out as a primary school teacher, I got my degree. I hadn't ever thought that I was going to necessarily work as a lecturer teaching other teachers, but happened to come here and work here. So that was one route. Equally, I could have gone into school leadership and developed as a head teacher. Equally, I might have gone into a museum and worked as an educationist in a museum. So it doesn't have to be a one route, and I think it's really important for people coming into teaching right now is to know that you're going to, if you're an 18-year-old coming into this profession, you've got a really long career that is likely that once you've got your teaching degree, you might very well think, actually, I might teach for a period of time and then I might move on to do something else and to do something else. And you may not stay in teaching for your entire career these days, because that's a lot of years.
I think it's good to note that going into teaching can then open up so many opportunities. Once you've got your QTS, you've got your PGCE, whatever qualification you get, you then go, you teach in any capacity, as you've said, but that then gives you so many transferable skills to then move on, and there's a lot of doors that I think open to teachers if it's something that they're then looking to progress into in other areas. So great to notice, because you're right, an 18-year-old coming into it, that is a long career. But, yeah, and it's always nice to know that you can come back into it.
Yeah, we have people that return to teaching once they've got their QTS and they've been out and they've been teaching, they'll come back. We have quite a lot of working parents who will take a break to look after children, for caring responsibilities, and then come back into it. We have parents that will be working flexibly.
So we often get a lot of overseas candidates talking to us about kind of how they can train to teach, become a teacher. What advice would you give for them to join the courses?
So we always have overseas candidates joining our courses, so we would welcome an overseas application because the qualifications need to be looked at individually. We would always say talk to our admissions department here at the university so they can check those qualifications. If those qualifications are relevant and appropriate and meet our requirements, then we would welcome them onto the course and join our other international students.
And I mean, I know you've already covered this probably, but just if you were a member of staff currently working at a school and wanting to kind of start their teacher training, what would their sort of schedule look like? Because obviously they're in full-time employment, how would that work alongside the university course?
Okay, so it really depends on what route they're taking. So I'm going to talk about our school-based routes. So if you were doing the whole degree, so if you're doing it undergraduate, we would be looking at 3 days in school and 2 days where you would be expected to be doing the study, and that would be the Undergraduate Teacher Degree Apprenticeship. If we were looking at a postgraduate, so the school-based route or the postgraduate teacher apprenticeship, then you're looking at 80% working week teaching, 20% studying, developing. But that 80% is worth thinking. We just don't drop you in and expect you to be able to teach 4 days a week just like that. We build that up in a gradual approach. So we have 3 distinct phases on our undergraduate and our postgraduate route, which we talk about being a collaborative phase, which is the beginning of the route, where you are working with the teacher, observing their practice, developing your understanding. You may be teaching small groups, you may be doing lots of observations, and you build that up as you go through, either if you're doing a 3-year teaching degree or if you're doing a postgraduate, you build that up during the year. And then we move into the developing phase where you're taking more responsibility for the class. Your teaching will increase to about 50%. So you're taking whole lessons, you're taking sequences of lessons. All the time you're getting regular feedback from your mentor that's in school on the quality of your teaching and how you might develop it and what content you might be delivering. And then we go into our independent phase, where we move you from teaching 50% and build that up to teaching the 80%. And that's why I talk about it being bespoke, because if you're somebody who's already been teaching in a school and you've been teaching a class and you've got class responsibility, you might start, your timetable might look, the timetable might be heavier to start with, so you might start teaching at 50%. Whereas if you've not been in the classroom, you've not taught before, then we definitely need to start you at that collaborative phase where you're observing, you're looking, you're teaching small groups, you're team teaching with your teacher, you're team planning with your teacher, so that you develop as you go through. So that's really important, whether you're on the postgraduate or whether you're on the undergraduate. That is definitely our approach all the way through. And then we get into this transition stage, which is the stage, our final stage, where we're really developing you as a teacher, making sure that you're ready to go out into the ECT years, where you're teaching that 80%, so that we can see that you can maintain 80%, where you're teaching, planning, and again, you will be given feedback, you'll be given support. All of our routes into teaching are in our partnership of schools across Kent. We work with about 400 schools across Kent. And we spend a lot of time working with our schools, training our mentors that are going to be working with you, and also having academic support in schools to support those mentors who are working with our students. And so you would have, once you're into that school, if you're doing a PGTA or if you are doing a school-based route, you would have a personal academic tutor along your journey with you to be able to support that journey.
If I was interested in joining one of the fabulous routes that you've spoken about, how would I go about getting onto that?
Okay, so all teaching routes go through the DfE Apply service. So what I would suggest you do is, first of all, think about which route might work for you or what routes are being offered at the minute, and you can do all of that through looking at the Apply service. So the Apply service will have postgraduate teacher routes, it will have school-based routes, and it will have PGCE routes. So you could go through and you could look at filtering for location, you could look at filtering for who's offering those routes. The Apply service is really good because you can actually have somebody who will support you with the process as well. So we'll support you with the application process, how to fill in your application forms, qualifications, and that's all provided by the DfE. So I would always say to somebody who's looking, your first port of call could be to look at that site. Definitely do come to us, come to an open day, contact our course directors. We have all of that information on the website. If you're somebody in school and you're just thinking, maybe my school might support this as an apprenticeship, or maybe it might support it as a school base, it's always worth coming to us because we can have the first conversations with school and support that conversation and answer the questions that the school might have about funding and how does it work and how do I pull a levy down and all of those things that schools might not be familiar with, we can support. We have a brilliant apprenticeship unit here at the university who can support somebody who's thinking about going down the apprenticeship route. So really, it's going to the Apply service first and foremost and looking at what's out there, what's suiting you. You can apply for more than one route. So actually, you could think, well, I might want a salaried school-based, or I might want a PGTA, or I might want PGCE, and you can apply for more than one route and then obviously accept. All routes require an interview. Our school-based routes, the schools will be providing those interviews and we will be joining and supporting those interviews. If you're coming to a university-based route, so our BA full-time and our PGCE full-time, then those routes require you to have an interview at the university, but we can offer those interviews online. So, you know, if you're someone who is from a distance, maybe one of our international students, then we offer those online, and that interview consists of you presenting on an area to do with education and some questions about education itself. So they're quite friendly interviews.
That's fantastic. Thank you both so much, because this has been eye-opening for me, and I'm sure it's been eye-opening for all the lovely people that have joined us. It's so interesting to hear the range of courses that are offered at university, because I think quite often people hear university, they think, oh, you're going for a degree, or you're going for a master's, or you're going for a PhD. So hearing that actually there are a range of different options, there are a range of different routes into education to develop yourself professionally, or the routes into teaching, is really valuable, especially when QTS is now becoming more compulsory thing for most schools as well. So it's quite nice that it can be done somewhere nice and local in Kent as well, which will hopefully support a lot of people in pursuing that career that they have. So just thank you very much, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.